A cool breeze helped abate the heat rushing through my body. That comfortable sensation also left me speechless. Rika-chan, who had been holding onto my sleeve the entire time, spoke.
僕の一番のお気に入りの場所なのですよ。
I'm sure it is. Yeah, it is a lovely spot. As she said that, she showed me an adorable smile. And that smile seemed very fleeting. If you asked why, that was because the view from our favorite spot would eventually be submerged under the deep green waters of the dam reservoir. You know, it kind of makes me question, is this a chapter going to be like a story of Akasaka slowly turning into a fighter for the Alliance as well? Kind of makes me think of that. Or at the very least, he is going to sympathize more and more with the Alliance and such. Because partially when I think of this chapter and the mission that Akasaka will have, it makes me think that some horrible stuff is going to happen. The usual Higurashi experience, I know. That Akasaka is going to go through some spooky moments himself throughout this. But what if he's going to end up sympathizing more and more with the Alliance and even fight in it alongside trying to rescue like the minister's grandson? It kind of makes me think like how he's gonna view this entire thing.
こんな村が湖底に沈むことになってるなんて信じられないよ。
I said it quietly so that only Rika-chan could hear it. I regretted it as soon as I did, for those words were all too cruel. However, Rika-chan didn't let them cast a cloud on her expression. In fact, she replied with a smile.
沈みませんよ。ダム計画なんて必ずなくなっちゃいますのです。
It was just like a little girl to say something like that. There was no basis for her saying so. It was just her wish.
赤坂はこの村が沈んでしまうと思っていますか？
沈んでほしくなんかないよ。
I knew how important the dam was. I knew that it was necessary. I just didn't want to recognize the sacrifices that would be made. I agreed with the project in general, but couldn't agree with some of the details. But if it meant that this girl's beloved scenery wouldn't be taken away from her, I might be able to object to the dam. I might be able to ignore the interests of the nation, the development of Tran, all for the sake of one girl's smile. I'm not really much of a humanist, but how sentimental of me.
沈みませんよ。ダムの計画はもうすぐなくなりますですから。
Her words weren't just hopes and dreams, but were seasoned with a hint of resolve, as if she was talking about an unchangeably predetermined outcome. As surely as the sun rising in the east.
もうすぐなくなる?
Wanting to ask her why she believed that, I turned around.
はい、なくなりますのですよ。
どうしてそう言い切れるんだい?
それはなのです。
She seemed to want to answer, but as though unable to find the right words, she swallowed back what she was about to say.
赤坂が何をしてもしなくても、ダム計画は今年で終わりになってしまうのです。
Regardless of what Akasaka does?
もう決まっていることなのですよ。
That was a lie. If something like that had already been decided, then Onigafuji Guardians would have no reason to continue existing. From my point of view, it's like they were doing nothing more than throwing themselves into an endless battle. That sentence that she said there, no matter what Akasaka will do, almost as if she already knows, like, the true identity of his. Or at the very least, she has a feeling that there's more to Akasaka's visit here than just tourism. If they knew the damn project was cancelled, he would feel much more relaxed around here. This village, though, could hardly be called relaxed. For evidence of that, I just had to remember how charged the atmosphere was at the checkpoint, or at the bus stop. The villagers, with their misplaced resolve, were still fighting. And this girl, even knowing the villagers' grim resolve, had already declared their victory. The villagers throwing themselves into this endless war, and this optimistic girl who said they had already won. The contrast was somehow strange.
どうしてそう思うんだい？何か確信があるなら私に教えてくれないかい？
And can you tell us without turning creepy in like a couple of seconds, like predictably doing like a complete 180 on us? Because I get the feeling that that's gonna happen in a couple of seconds. Let's see. Like, I bet my $5 that I have in my pocket. Let me check. Let me see. How much do I have? Like, I actually have $10. I bet my $10 that something spooky is gonna happen in a couple of seconds. Like, her answer is gonna be tinged with the creepiness. Rika-chan stayed silent for a while, seemingly choosing what to say.
だって。
だって。
She looked like she was lost on whether she should continue or not. As if she was troubled on whether it was okay for her to say it. That kind of expression.
決まっていることなのです。他に言いようがないのですよ。
決まっているって言ったって。
Yeah, it really is just like a little girl to say something like that. I can't believe it was actually true. She was the only one saying such things with such confidence. My real mission, that I had forgotten about during this fun-filled day, resurfaced at the back of my mind. The kidnapping of the minister's grandson. Had the Onikafuchi guardians kidnapped the minister's grandson, and already succeeded in negotiating cancellation of the damn project? Did Kimiyoshi actually already know that I was just playing dumb? Was that what this girl was really telling me?
Akasaka.
The girl called out my name slowly.
なんだい？
東京へ帰れ。
Alright, well, I won the bet. Yeah. I wasn't only surprised at that sudden command. Ever since I came to this village, I'd never once mentioned I was from Tokyo. Exactly. We never mentioned Tokyo once, and yet she knew. How, though? Well, based on my accent, she might have been able to guess where I was from. What was I getting so worked up over? It was probably the sudden incomplete change in her demeanor.
あなたはさっさと東京に帰った方がいい。でないとひどく後悔することになる。
The girl had been holding my sleeve the entire time. Huh. Well, what a lovely circle we've made here. She'd been tugging at my sleeve since early, dragging me over to show me this wonderful view. That one time I've heard the word Nipa being uttered from a blue-haired girl's mouth, like even before I started my journey in Hinamizawa. And now I'm hearing a very familiar voice coming from this little girl. But this was the adorable Rika-chan, who I'd spent the entire day with. There was no way she could have been replaced with a doppelganger when I wasn't looking. She had been holding onto my sleeve this entire time. And somehow this girl was someone other than Rika-chan. She looked like Rika-chan, but she wasn't. She was some girl I had never met before. That girl had told me in an indifferent voice that I would eventually regret coming to this village from the bottom of my heart.
それがあまりにもみすぼらしくて気の毒な姿だから今のうちから警告してあげているのです。
どうして私が後悔することになると。
いちいちうるさいな。
I couldn't believe that I was hearing such cold words coming from Rika-chan's mouth. I just couldn't believe it. Somebody impersonating her? Using ventriloquism or something? Thinking that, I wanted to take a look around, but the girl's gaze had me pinned down, making me unable to move.
あなたの親は、あなたが赤信号の横断歩道の真ん中にいるとき、どうして危ないのかを全部説明し終えるまで、あなたの手を引っ張らないの？引っ張るでしょ？まず歩道まで連れ戻してから、なぜ危険なのかを解くでしょう。つまりはそういうこと。
The girl I spent time with, Rika Furude, would not speak like that. She would speak with a cuteness befitting her age, with brief childish remarks, expressing her emotions honestly. She definitely wouldn't speak with such pointed words.
警告はした。勘違いしないでほしいのは、私があなたを嫌いだからこういうことを言ってるわけじゃないってこと。死んでもいい人に危険なんかを教える必要はないのだし。
君はリカちゃんじゃない。
ん
As soon as I accused her of not being Rika-chan, she let out a strange, quiet giggle. It was left not befitting a child of her age. It was like she was possessed by something. Her change was just that total and complete. Was Rika-chan being attacked by some terrifying phenomenon? That occult idea came to mind without any sort of hesitation. Rika-chan is acting strange. Somebody, help, help. Thinking that I yelled at, I turned to where the mayor was. I immediately realized he was looking at us with a smile. That's right. To him, it looked like nothing more than me and Rika-chan fooling around. He didn't notice that there was something terrifying happening to her.
赤坂の怖がり。
The girl had obviously grasped that I was afraid. Noticing that and calling me a coward, she laughed again. That cackling girl, approaching me in a strange manner while still laughing, lost her balance and fell flat on her face. Rika-chan fell down. If it was just a while before, I would have extended a hand to help her up without hesitation. But now, extending a hand to this ominous girl who looked like Rika-chan but wasn't, required a bit more courage than I had at the moment. Me? The girl cried out thus. She then squirmed upright and dusted herself off. Feeling better? Are you alright? Afterwards, she looked around restlessly as a blank expression crept across her face. Hey, you gotta be kidding me. Was she making fun of me? That way of acting, it was as though, after being possessed by something, she had lost her memories of what happened.
冗談だろ。リカちゃん。
Alright, I guess so. You know, we had that talk before about the connection between Higurashi and Mineko in the form of Mercastel Lambda Delta. And I said this before and I'm gonna say it again. Just because I know the connection doesn't necessarily mean that Higurashi is gonna end up going that route with witches once again. It's just that, well, I do know that some fucked up stuff is gonna happen to Rika and Satoko to the point where they would have such trauma, which would create Lambda Delta and Mercastel in the form of witches. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are gonna be in the story as well. Like Lambda Delta and Higurashi. It's not like we're gonna see them. It's just that we are gonna see pain and suffering from Satoko and Rika in a different form than what we were used to in Mineko. Like, for example, who knows? Maybe we are gonna meet like more adult versions, quote unquote, of Rika and Satoko that will look similar to Lambda Delta Mercastel, but they're not gonna be called Lambda Delta Mercastel, and they're not gonna be witches. For example, this person right over here that felt completely different from the Rika that we know, that sounded really similar to Mercastel, is not Mercastel in this story. It is something else that resembles that Mercastel that I've known. It's like we're having like different stories with a different coat of paint that have some connections, but at the same time, it's not as if the events of Higurashi are going to have like any relevance to the Yumineko or something like that. If you understand what I'm trying to say over here, viewers. With that being said though, I am still surprised that I got to hear that voice coming from Rika. It's like, I don't know.
Me.
I don't know if Rika-chan had heard me or not. She just cried out like that, as if questioning herself.
Okyakujin! Rika-chama mo ocha ga hairimashita yo!
The fuck is that voice of yours, old woman?
Shio daifuku mo aru kara ni zii hikutte kinsai na!
You sound like a freaking traditionally old witch or something like that, or you sound like a girl that is pretending to be an old woman in a comedic fashion. An old lady wearing a smock was waving energetically from the entrance of the office. Hearing that there were snacks, Rika-chan's expression changed. A carefree smile. That was a familiar smile, the one that belonged to the embodiment of my ideal daughter. Any hint of the creepy girl that was just there, spouting sinister words, had vanished. Like, it very much surprises me because not only was the voice similar, but that's exactly how Mercastel sounds. For sure. And, well, now I am also reminded of those poems that we see at the beginning of the chapters, like, Kwa.
Hola, Rika-chama! Te o aratte kinsai ne! Bachi o tete ni akuwaseru manju wa arinsen ne! Chanto araimasu desu yo! Me?
Rika-chan responded with vigor, running off to the washing station that was alongside the office. Well, bye, Rika. Also, bye, Mark 1 Mercastel or something. She stopped halfway, turning around to call to me.
早く来ないから、僕は赤坂の分までおまんじゅうが食べられてホクホクなのです。
Oh no, we better hurry.
お手手を洗わない人はおまんじゅうが食べられないのですよ。
No matter how you looked at it, that was Rika-chan. Those words and the way she said them. No matter how you heard them, they were definitely Rika-chan's. Okay, your voice is annoying. Can you shut the fuck up? And the old lady urged me to wash my hands. Without any resistance, I lumped up beside Rika-chan at the wash station. Splish splash. I stared at Rika-chan, intent on washing her hands properly, like she had probably learned at school.
みー、間違っていますか？
間違いって。
僕のお手手の洗い方です。金シールを4個しかもらったことないです。僕はお手手を洗うのがきっと下手なのですよ。
間違ってなんかないよ。それだけしっかり洗えてれば十分だよ。
Exactly.
それだけではダメなのですよ、赤坂。ちゃんとたわしを使って爪の間の赤も落とさないと金シールはもらえないのです。
うん。リカちゃんは真面目で偉いな。
ニパー、赤坂に褒められましたのです。
No matter how you looked at it, it was Rika-chan. There was no trace of that girl from before. Exactly what was that sinister girl?
リカちゃん、さっきのあれはどういう意味だい？さっきリカちゃんは私に東京へ帰れってそう言っただろ。
言いましたのですか？
I was at a loss for words. She didn't remember what the girl just now had said. Like I would ever believe something as occult as that could happen. Like I would ever believe that Rika-chan could be possessed by that strange girl and say those creepy things.
リカちゃんが確かにそう言ったよ。
Her expression told me that. Unless, like, excluding the whole Ben Castell and witches talk that we've had before, I guess a more quote-unquote realistic take on this would be that, I don't know, maybe Rika has like a split personality thing. She has this split personality of a much more adult and more refined Rika who speaks like complex words and such as a means of protecting herself from the trauma that she has, of the suffering that she has, that she taps into this more fearful adultish version of herself to, you know, to no longer suffer. So, yeah, it could be that. Despite my saying so, she had no idea. She wasn't playing dumb. She actually didn't know. Exactly what was that just now? Just as Rika-chan had, I let a look of confusion creep across my face. 'Cause, again, I don't feel like I can even go with that theory that I had before about how the more fear you have of this village, like the more ill you are from the disease and such, and thus you would start seeing more creepier and creepier sound, like stuff. Because Akasaka just arrived here. He doesn't know much of the stuff that has been happening here. Like in chapter 1 with Keiichi, it has been a gradual shift of him learning about the creepiness of Hinamizawa, and thus seeing more creepy stuff in accordance with my theory. But here, this is another example of how the creepiness is just thrust upon Akasaka, just like that, without any build-up whatsoever. It's not as if he would be diseased, he would have like such disease in the first place, so kind of makes you feel that what we're seeing with Urika-chan here is just... it is real. Like, it feels real. I don't know. The two of us, both looking like we had no idea what was going on, must have certainly been a humorous sight to behold. While partaking of tea and snacks, I was shown a propaganda film shot by the Guardians that highlighted their resistance efforts. Older folks talked passionately on how long and grueling the fight against the dam was, but they fell on deaf ears. I was transfixed by Rika-chan, who had heard these stories countless times before. I was transfixed by Rika-chan, who had heard these stories countless times before. He was nodding off. Eventually, Rika-chan noticed I was staring at her, and smiled as she rubbed her eyes. And that smile was Rika-chan's after all. There was no hint of that sinister shadow. After that, my unreasonable fear of Rika-chan lessened with the passing of time, but I could by no means forget what had happened. It eventually grew dark. The mayor said that they had prepared dinner, but I said I would come again tomorrow and took my leave. Yeah, we gotta meet with the informant. I had to return to the hotel and file my regular report with the Secretary-in-Chief.
そうですか。では、また明日もぜひいらっしゃい。お電話さくれれば、すぐに迎えを出しますんでね。
ご好意感謝します。
Thank you.
ぜひ明日も遊びに来ようと思います。
ねえ、さしてあげてくださいな。あんた、レイカちゃまに大層気に入られたみたいだしね。
赤坂は明日も来ますですか？
Is that real?
明日は5次元で終わりですから、3時くらいに来てくれると嬉しいのですよ。
Please come again. That pure smile urged me to do so. There wasn't a trace of that evil aura. Depending on what happened next, all that might end up as nothing other than my hallucination. Thinking about it logically, if the daughter of the Furuta household, one of the 3 families, had taken a liking to me, then this was a strong foothold for my investigation from here on out. Now, going back to the idea of how Rika is using this other personality of hers to scare Akasaka away, we gotta remind ourselves that this is during the times of the protest, where outsiders would be looked at with suspicious gazes. Like, a lot more than in 1983 or something like that. Like, anybody would be suspicious of the visitors, like Akasaka. So, Rika is kind of... It's kind of like Rika is doing her job a little bit, trying to spook off the tourist that she finds suspicious, therefore telling her in a spooky manner to leave Hinamizawa and go back to Tokyo and such. How she found out about Tokyo though? If only I could have treated that little incident as a figment of my imagination. Then having this girl who was the embodiment of my ideal daughter grow so attached to me wasn't bad either. I successfully dove into the belly of the Wanigafuchi Guardians, and the mayor as well as other important members of the Alliance welcomed me with open arms. And this was a great turn of events. However, I still felt uneasy. Getting back to the hotel, I forced down an almost painfully cold beer until I could clear my mind. The shock from the incomprehensibly strange instant continued to torment me. Alright. Another set of tips. Met with someone's adorable daughter. A terrifying one indeed. Alright, well, let's see. It's a young Mion! Oh my god! Like, I wanna... fuck, I have to go through these 2 first. Alright, well, let's see. I mean, I don't have to, but, you know, kind of go in order. The sound of the car grew closer, followed by the sound of it braking as the engine cut out. At that moment, his up until now lackadaisical footsteps grew decisive as the man in the room dashed up to the wall beside the window and carefully peered outside. It was his comrade's car. Is it the kidnappers? Even so, he still didn't relax his guard. Eventually, the sound of footsteps approached the door. Thump, 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 thump. It was the passcode.
帰ってきたんね。開けちょくれな。俺だ。
ああ、お疲れ。今開ける。
After the locks were undone and the door opened, a man appeared, his arms laden with swollen plastic grocery bags. The bags in his hands had 7 smart print marked, with bread and milk cartons able to be glimpsed within. The contents of those bags were then spread out over a sheet on the floor.
カップラーメン買ってきちゃう。お湯沸かせな。小僧はどうしてる？
ん？ずっと寝てる。手がかからなくて助かるよ。うんこ垂れるときは騒ぐけどな。
漏らさせんな。弁収は万一のとき、やばいって。
わかってるよ。
猿グツワは定期的にチェックんな。外れてもまずいん。きつくも締め付けちゃあん。窒息させたら意味がなん。
わかってるって。あれ？携帯コンロのガス管頼まなかった？もうガスねえよ。
聞いてねえ。だは。
マジかよ。ついてくれよ。くそ、くそ。
He rattled the portable stove as he struggled to get it to light. Seeing that, the man who went to buy supplies let out a deep sigh, and with a backwards glance at that sight, began to walk to the corner room. The kidnapped boy was sprawled out on a sheet that was spread out on the floor.
小僧、元気かいね。
Of course, the man didn't assume the kid was able to hear that question. That was because the boy's ears were plugged, with his eyes and ears thoroughly covered by packing tape. Also, his mouth was gagged with a thin, twisted-up towel. Because of that, the boy wasn't able to close his mouth properly, his cheeks sticky with his own saliva. Of course, that wasn't the only reason. Both his arms were tied tightly behind his back with a leather belt.
今んところ、順調らし。命の心配はない。お前のじいさんがしぶりよったん。耳たぶの一つも切り落とさなきゃならんかったんけ。やらんくて済んで助かりよんよ。本家はこうと決めたら、鬼やんね。どんな残酷なこと命令するかも想像つかん。その本家が、小僧に傷一つつけるな言うてんから、とにかく、順調なんだろんな。
大臣はダム計画を撤回で水面下工作。Hinamizawaダム計画は無期凍結へ。小僧の解放はいつ頃になるんだろうな。早く一服したいもんだぜ。
本家が決着のタイミング、測ってるらしい。いつになるかはあらんが、近いうちやんな。
It does seem as if these are just regular henchmen that this main family hired. It doesn't seem that they have that much of a connection to this main family, whether it's the Sonozaki's or someone else.
よかったな、小僧。もうじき解放されるぞ。
The men didn't know if their voices were heard by the boy. For him, there was nothing he could do but continue to sleep to escape his harsh reality.
それよん、ガスをどうするんね。ラーメン食えんよ。ガス切れたなら言うてえな、も
う。Alrighty then. Why I like rainy days. The weather forecast had predicted that it wouldn't rain at all this entire week. It's not that I hate sunny days or anything. When every day is the same, unchanging sunny weather, however. Anybody would long for a rain cloud or two. Especially during summer, indeed. if it's simply clear skies for a week, a month, a year, anybody would long for a rain cloud or two. The weather specialist said that they had carefully scrutinized a large quantity of past data, so it wouldn't be so likely for the forecast to be wrong. I knew as much. But even then, there was occasionally a day where I was hoping that it would be wrong, as I stared up into the clear blue sky. Was I being mischievous in hoping so? I waited and waited, feeling me almost suffocated by the boring blue sky undisturbed by a single cloud. You know what I'm thinking? Speaking of that whole Ben Castell thing, or a.k.a. this other personality of Rika, I wonder if that tip that we had before about the gears and this particular tip right over here, it is that girl, that Ben Castell girl. Like, that personality, that Ben Castell. I'm just gonna call her Ben Castell, fuck it. Like, it would be Ben Castell, because it kind of reminds me of that talk. Like, of her. Like, you know, speaking philosophically about gears and the road and the relationship between people, and also that side of hers that would find things boring and such. Kind of reminds me of her. If you could die from that suffocating feeling, the population of Earth probably wouldn't have increased to this point. In other words, the only person who was being suffocated by this was me. And so, I welcomed the summer evenings where not even the weather forecast could predict a sudden shower. If I were to explain it like this, would you understand a bit more about how I feel? Unless it's Mio Takano again. But, this is entirely new to me, because when it comes to Mio Takano, like the creepy factor when it comes to Mio Takano would be about the history of Hinamizawa and, you know, what she's trying to find, like the spooky stuff and all that. But that's about it. She wouldn't talk like this by herself. She wouldn't narrate them like this stuff like that. Let's say that tonight's dinner was going to be curry rice. But when you're called down to the dinner table, what was waiting for you was instead an eggplant and bell pepper stir fry. This is just on your mother's whim, by the way. I would be delighted by such whimsy. I don't really like eggplants or bell peppers, but still, I will be delighted. Eggplants. That does sound familiar. Was there something about eggplants that Ben Castell said in Imineko? It kind of feels like I remember something about eggplants. That somebody did not like eggplants, but maybe this is just me. The fact that a pre-established routine of curry rice had been broken would be amusing. If tonight was repeated 100 times, and 100 times you had to eat curry rice. Yet for just this one night, that was changed to an eggplant and bell pepper stir fry. There's no way you can enjoy the chance happening. I hate pre-established routines. I really hate when things are all decided beforehand. I have no love for boredom. I always get my hopes up that something today will be different from yesterday, no matter how trivial. It's been decided that this entire week starting today was going to be clear skies. The weather forecast decided upon it, so the god of weather must also feel obliged to do so. But who's to say that a rain cloud might not just show up one day on a whim? It's somebody that nobody can say for sure. But because that thought remains in this world, a creature such as myself can continue living without being suffocated. Tomorrow will probably be a hot and clear day. However, I'm the only one that knows that predetermined fate, even with but a slim 1% chance, sometimes changes. Hoping for that 1%, I hung up upside down weather charms on my sunlit eavesdrops. In the end, I spent my days waiting for those unexpected things in life to happen. I pondered why I was hoping for it. Why was I hoping for a rain cloud? The answer was simple. I've had my fill of clear skies. Then why was I hoping for a rain cloud? The answer was simple. The fact that it was going to be sunny tomorrow was boring. So why was I hoping for a rain cloud? In the end, it doesn't really matter whether it rains or shines tomorrow. Basically, it was just that the rain would water my heart, which was withered from boredom. I mean, there's also these sentences right over here that sound like they are a poem, like a repetition of something. Why was I waiting for a rain cloud? Because of this simple answer. Why was I waiting for a rain cloud? Because of that answer. It kind of reminds me of those poems, like at the beginning of this chapter. So, yeah, these are surely from Rika/Ben Castell. And that's why, rather than a TV drama where the plot's already been decided, I prefer to look up at the sky. Weird. Alright, well, let's see.
だいぶ血圧も良くなってきましたよ。そのお年でこれだけの回復力があるのは、いやいや、感服するばかりです。
Well, here's the idiot. Hello, the idiot.
お嬢さんなら100でも200でも元気にお過ごしになれますね。
Like, I am still thinking that maybe Irie was a family doctor for a bunch of kids, including Satoko and Satoshi. The reason why he felt a little bit more attached to them, and maybe in similar fashion to the Sonozakis. The young doctor in his medical coat said that as he undid the blood pressure cuff from the arm of the old woman tucked away in her futon.
入江の先生は本にお上手で、わしんたいな死に損ないは早うしなんと若者の邪魔になっていけんね。
The old lady Oreo laughed faintly with a broad smile on her face. Then, turning towards the sliding door, she called out in a strong voice.
しみこさん、かたえこさんおらんね。入江先生に麦茶でも入れてやりゃな。
The sound of rushed footsteps from the hallway grew closer, until finally the door slid smoothly open. What they revealed was a young girl. It looked like the old lady's granddaughter.
しみこさんは今日はもう上がっちゃったよ。何かよ。
Look at her. Look at her. Look at her! It's a baby! Oh my god! Look at her. Adorable little Mion.
みよ、入江の先生に麦茶を入れたってんな。
うん、了解。抹茶も飲む？紅茶の方がいい？砂糖もミルクもたっぷり？
わしが加減するから入れんでええんね。砂糖壺とミルクも一緒に持ってきてんな。
はいはい。
The girl named Mion, after giving a rather uninterested response to a taskmaster of a grandmother, returned to the hallway.
先生の麦茶は来客用のガラス茶碗に入れるんよ。ちゃんとお座布団もつけてな。水滴もちゃんと拭き取っとくんね。
待ってるって、うっさいな。
A tired voice wafted a reply from down the hallway. The apathetic tone of voice was far from unusual. The old lady let a dry smile slip across her face as she chided the girl.
しょうがないやっちゃな。叱られるうちが離んねえ、なんたく。
お嬢さん、お嬢さん、まあ、そこまでは言わなくても、ミオンちゃんも若いなりに頑張ってますから。
あれの母親もな、しょうがないやっちゃったんね。よう似とる。
で、その母親の母親もまたそっくりなんじゃないですか？